Good afternoon. This is Beau from BEAU'D Not Broken, and I'm here in Sandy, and this is going to be a great show. We've talked about suicide. We've talked about a lot of things that happen in life and addictions and things like that. We've really not approached the whole topic or issue of pornography. So I hope you stay with us for the next 30 to 40 minutes and watch and listen and all those kinds of things. Grateful to our guest for being here, and you're only seeing half of his shoulder and half of his head, and I really appreciate him coming. For him to reach out, he reached out to me, and I am eternally grateful because I think this is something that we need to talk about. We will have him on this time, and hopefully if he wants to come on again, he'll come on again. I guess the reason why my voice is a little less elevated is because it's a serious topic. And again, you're watching The Daily Bend on BEAU'D Not Broken, and coming to you from Sandy, and really appreciate everybody passing these shows on, watching them on the website, watching them on YouTube, pass them around. And if you have any show ideas or you'd like to be on, please let me know. I was up in Huntsville yesterday and spoke to the Warburtons. That was a great show. A lot of great information from them. I will go anywhere and do anything as long as I can afford it. So thanks for being with us. And remember, tomorrow's BEAU'D Friday. So I've got Yoda on today, just because Yoda man, Yoda woman, whatever it may be. All right, let's get moving. So appreciate you being here. Really appreciate you being here. Tell us about your journey. This show is about people's stories and people's journeys, and your journey in a way is no different than millions and millions and millions of people that have issues. And so and this is a no judgment zone, and especially appreciate you being here because I think we're going to reach quite a few folks. So
that's what I'm hoping for. My journey, if you looked back on my life 3 years ago, you would think I was no different than anyone else. People would have called me successful, good job, good career, family, kids, active member in my church, and no one would have suspected a thing. Fact was, I was dying inside. I was depressed, hated who I was.
Very similar to what we're talking about with suicide.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've actually attempted suicide a couple times throughout my life. And the way I finally started dealing with it, I was unhappy, and I found porn. And for me, porn was my alcohol, or porn was my drugs. Mm-hmm. It was a way to escape. It became a fantasy to where I could be happy, I could enjoy life. But it got to the point where it literally consumed me. I would be sitting there watching TV with my family and be in chat rooms.
Really?
Yeah.
On your phone
on
and
my
all that
phone,
stuff.
on my iPad.
Right.
I would be at work and be in chat rooms, different sites, different conversations. Craigslist was an easy way to get a conversation with people.
Yeah, there was a little bit of controversy, or a lot of controversy with Craigslist.
Yeah, there has been.
So prior to the 3 years, you were not into porn per se?
Oh no, I've been into porn for, I'd say it started when I was younger, but really it started in the 90s for me.
Okay.
I was military, came back from a deployment, wanted to divorce my wife at the time. My parents encouraged me not to, and I kind of gave up on life. And that was
another returning veteran, another returning soldier, another returning service person.
And I don't blame that. I don't blame my ex-wife. I don't blame anyone but me. I'm the one that made the choices. I'm the one that made the choice. Instead of saying, I'm unhappy, I'm going to get a divorce, or, seeking help and counseling, I'm the one that dove in. And I own it.
If I keep looking at that camera, I just make sure that it's still on. You're watching The Daily Bend, And we have a friend here, a great person to come in and talk about his past porn addiction, and we're just kind of starting out with kind of the beginnings of what was going on here in the last 3 years.
And the more I dove into it, life got better for a little while. But then you carry around that guilt that you're doing it in front of your daughters, or you're doing it in front of your kids, or you're at work and, oh my gosh, am I going to get caught? But then you get this overwhelming feeling, well, I'm not going to. I'm good. I've got it covered. I've got it handled. And you dive in deeper because you need that bigger fix. You need that.
So very similar to a drug.
Absolutely.
You're looking for the next hit. You're looking for the next.
So you expand your horizon.
Right.
And you find more and more, even though it may not really be of interest to you, you gotta have something else to keep you going. And mine came to a crash a little over 3 years ago. I was in what I thought was a normal chat, just like I had before. I was out of town on work and ended up being arrested for attempting to lure a minor.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was an undercover detective that answered my ad through Craigslist. And I wasn't going and meeting anyone. I was simply having a conversation.
How would you go about you would put an ad out, or you were answering that? Oh, you would.
Sometimes I placed an ad. Sometimes I'd answer ads.
Right.
And usually I put that I was open to anything. And when the person said they're 13 in the conversation, I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, and just kind of went with it. It was a fantasy world.
Right.
But that was the worst night of my life, but also one of the greatest. Spent 36 days in jail.
So did they storm into did they know where you were, or did
they knew where I was?
So they kind of stormed into your room, or where?
No, they actually got me right outside of the hotel when I came back from jail. And spent the first 3 days trying to figure out how to kill myself. I couldn't figure out how to go on at all. But it turns out that was actually one of the greatest nights of my life, because my life has never been the same. I got help.
How did you get help? I mean, so you spent those 36 days, and then so in that time you decided that you've got to do something about this whole thing. So you pretty much
I decided, but life kind of helped decide for me.
Jobs and family.
I was out of state. I was by myself.
Right.
I did have an amazing person that I had no idea who they were, but through a connection, decided to start coming and visiting me once in a while.
Right.
And that was huge. And I encourage anyone, if you've got the time and you know someone, whether it's a personal or even a friend's connection, visit people. It makes a difference in their lives if they're in jail. It really does.
Amazing what connections can do, and that unconditional love.
It was.
That people will.
And I had a couple of people that definitely stuck by me, were there for me, and that made a huge difference. They didn't like what I did. They didn't like what I was in, but they still went ahead and stuck by me. And I think that's the thing is you've got to be willing to ask the questions, but then if you hear the answer, stick with them, even if you don't like what you're hearing.
That's great advice, because you're probably not going to hear what you want to hear,
No, you aren't. If I really, and there's only been 2 people that I've been able to truly discuss what all I got into, and they couldn't stand it. I mean, the one guy told me flat out he wanted to punch me in the face.
Right.
That's how far I'd gone. It's no further than an alcoholic that is drinking himself to death. And
right.
Instead of just beer, he's doing, bottles of whiskey at a time, or
right.
a drug addict that, shooting up 2 or 3 times, or snorting, or, it truly is not any different. Tell me
a little bit about your treatment or your therapy and obviously ongoing, but what did you do? Where did you find help? Where did you find help?
I got court ordered.
Okay.
But I sought out counseling with some pastors that I knew.
Okay.
before I even got court ordered.
Right.
But then when I got court ordered, I called around to several different counseling services and got into one. And at first I'm like, I don't need this. But the more I talked with them, the more I was able to relate and understand why things were the way they were. Why I was acting the way I was acting. And it took me a while. It took me several months to finally put that I was depressed and that I was trying to escape that depression. And for me, that's what it was. I know for other people, it's different things. It's
So
not just
your depression and your sadness, and that darkness, that it's the same as it's the same as you or I. It's me and everybody else out there.
Yeah, it's for me. It was self-hatred. I lost my dad when I was really young, died in my arms. I had a very close friend later in life blow his head off. And that was literally after I walked out of his door.
So you had some serious PTSD.
I have. I've had some serious trauma in my life. Now, that being said, that still didn't lead up to the choices I made. I still made those choices. And that's the thing that I've got to be clear on. All the choices I made. I can't blame anyone else. I can't blame any circumstances. I made them. And I own those. However, there are things that if you recognize in people or you see in your friends or loved ones, talk to them. Call them out on it. Hey, I see that you've been sitting in your room a lot. Why?
So it's the same symptoms as anything else. It's just what you're addicted to is different. I mean, the range of spectrum can be anything.
Absolutely.
It's the same thing as we've been talking about, reaching out and, if you see somebody that, yeah.
Pornography, honestly, is a little bit easier to hide than some other things. Because there's not the necessarily the effect. But there are symptoms, lack of sex with a spouse. There's no other way to say it. You lose that interest because it's just not the same as the fantasy.
Right. That's important. That would be really important. That lack of sex, because there's always it's like the Super Bowl.
And let me also clarify. Just because there's not a lack of sex doesn't mean the person's addicted to porn. I mean, there's other things that happen, but it could be a key thing.
Right.
People jumpy when you walk into like a home office if they're on the computer. There's things that you can see. There's things that you can do. Watch and show, and all of a sudden there's a sex scene, and most people are like, yeah, let's get past that. And some people, if they're addicted to porn, it really doesn't have an effect on them anymore. They're used to seeing it. It doesn't have that shock or that interest or there's different things like that you can see, but it is definitely a harder one.
You're watching the Daily Bend here on BEAU'D Not Broken, and we're talking about pornography and the addiction to pornography and this gentleman's journey through and around and everything else, and his willingness to he reached out to me and was willing to and wanted to speak about it. Obviously he's cut half off and all you can see is a shoulder, because this would affect his family and other people, and we don't want that to happen. But what we do want, what I'm very grateful for, is your willingness to talk about what's going on, because if you can help one person, that, and I think that's why you reached out. If you can help one person, then everything else, really doesn't matter. Talk to me about, Utah. Utah has an interesting culture, and I didn't grow up here, but I was involved in, law enforcement and teaching and a lot of different types of things, and we always talk about here in Utah how it really, in the culture, that's one of the addictions. It's the addiction in any culture, I'm sure, but in this culture, there's a lot of men who, in whatever church it might be, but here predominantly the LDS church, that they're involved in this type of behavior, and it breaks up marriages and ruins families and things like that. From your perspective, is that true?
Absolutely. And I definitely wouldn't classify it to the LDS.
Mm-hmm.
I would just classify it to the area, period.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived in other places where pornography, sex is a lot more predominant.
True.
It's open. Doesn't mean there's not issues, but it's more open.
Right.
But here, where it's the taboo. Let's, God forbid, we talk about it, let alone talk about it in a church where people are really struggling.
Right.
It's hidden.
Right.
But the fact is it's going on all over the city, all over the valley. There's places that people know to go to get together, to meet, to hook up. It's
and
not
watch
hard.
or hook up and
Well,
both.
Absolutely.
So there are places, little enclaves and little, groups of people that know how to.
Yeah, and there's places that you just wouldn't even think of. And as you dive into that world, you find that out.
Wow.
Their public restrooms are pretty common, certain ones. And, it needs to become a topic. It doesn't have to be a taboo issue. It needs to be addressed. And I think the younger generations are becoming even more desensitized to it, to where it's like, it's whatever. It's not a big issue.
Really?
But I think it does affect you.
Your recovery. How do you see yourself right now? You've gone through everything that you can probably go through, and your family has. Is there something that you struggle with every day, or are you you're on top of this thing and
as far as the porn, I'm on top of it.
Right.
I'm very open with people.
Right.
Some people say I'm too open, but it's the only way I know how to live anymore.
Well, if you can affect somebody's life.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I would imagine the other issues would be the other human issues of depression and those types of things.
There's still some of that where I fight it. I have to really watch it. I've changed my life. I've changed my behaviors. But yeah, it's still, would I say I'm completely cured? No. I think I could probably easily slip back to it. But I don't allow myself.
That was going to be another question. How do you view yourself that way? Are you cured? Is it very synonymous with alcohol, and I think where we say I'm so many days free, and I'm not going to reoffend, that type of stuff. And
my counselor really helped me with how I changed my thinking. For me personally, women were just objects. It didn't matter where I was or who I was with. I could look at different women and objectify them.
Right.
And he helped me really kind of understand. And for someone that's never been in that position, you'll go, serious? That's not real. It is. But when you change your thinking, and instead of looking at that 20-year-old as an object, as a sex symbol, you look at them as your daughter. And it takes that away. And I think that kind of leads into another subject of the title of sex offender. I think we've, as a community, as a social group, have really gone wrong with that title. Are there people that deserve it and need to be on the list and need to be warned? Absolutely, 100%. People that I did time with in jail, I personally would not want to be neighbors with them, knowing what they did.
Right.
That being said, a lot of people that get it, like myself, and I'm not doing this saying, hey, feel sorry for me. Do not deserve it.
People understand
that. I went through counseling with a 20-year-old that had sex with his 17-year-old girlfriend, and mom and dad got mad. No, he knew.
Well,
But mom and dad got mad
exactly.
and called the cops. And now he's on the sex offenders list. I know someone else that owned a bar. Met a girl in the bar, turned out she was 16 and had a fake ID. He's now on the sex offenders list. There's people on there that if you met in everyday life, you would never know, have no issues, but because they made a mistake or had the addiction like myself, now you're on there and it impedes so much.
You're absolutely right. As an old copper, as an old administrator, as a chief, and all of those things, I saw so many people that were wrongfully accused and convicted. You're right. I'll fight it till the end. Not every sex offender is, we don't know the whole story.
Correct.
And that's what's unfortunate. There are predator sex offenders
Absolutely.
that need to be, quotations, sex offenders, but in some of my day, back a long time ago, and even there were kids that were doing pranks and peed on a fence, and it was in front of maybe other types of people, but they ended up, laws were such that they ended up as a lewdness was a sex offender type
Correct.
of thing. So I think everybody can understand.
And then on that list also, they don't actually explain what you did. They just put you in a group. Like on mine, it shows kidnapping. I don't remember, but kidnapping is the big one.
Right.
And I wasn't even close to anything like
Right.
that. But if you look at that and see my name, you go, oh my gosh,
Right.
I better work.
Right.
And it couldn't be further from the truth. And I've been very blessed with some good people in my life. Because otherwise, like I said, the first 3 days, I tried to kill myself in jail. Since those 3 days, I've found new purpose in life, and I refuse to slip back into depression. It's not easy. It's not an easy battle.
Right.
I still fight it. Even recently, I got laid off and been unemployed, and I've had to really fight the depression. It's something that has to get out there. People need to know and recognize and help pull people out of depression. Give people a chance. Take them out to coffee, talk with them. You know what? If you're a boss and you're hiring, give someone a chance, especially if they're qualified. Give them a chance.
Especially if they're old.
That too.
No, really, that's really a big frustration for that age group of 38 to 40 to 60 is that whole thing you're talking about. And it does make people depressed. I mean, am I not good enough? Am I not this? And I'm that? And then that leads to, trying to, drink it down or trying to look at it, whatever it might be. It's just something. In your opinion, can pornography, can that addiction be, can it be fought and won and all those kinds of things?
Absolutely.
In the sense of, is it in the therapy that someone gets, or is it a combination of lifestyle and family and like a lot of other things? Is there one common thing with pornography? Because I know it was with that term sex offender. We always knew in the criminal justice system that it was very difficult to reform someone that was a sex offender. It was just very difficult for them to recover and to come back and I think a lot had to do with predatory type offenders.
Yeah, but I think that's where you gotta be careful when you throw that title out is, can a sex offender be reformed? Absolutely. Now, a predatory one, I won't say no.
Well, the statistics are,
But realistically, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, and I believe others also, between counseling and support, change of life, yeah, you can definitely get reformed. You can change your life. You can improve. Counseling was big for me, definitely. And it wasn't the counselor himself. He was great, but I also had, like I said, a couple of pastors that I counseled with, and, they didn't play games with me. They were straightforward with me. And, I needed that. I needed help.
Are you familiar with the legislature, and they just passed that it was like a, you know, an anti-pornography type, making it a, you know, almost a, just basically as a state saying pornography is, you know, not something that.
I have watched it a little bit. I think that they're trying to do the right thing, but I think they're going about it the wrong way.
That's the follow-up. What do you think would be a better way?
Well, I think educating people. You know, we're too quick to make laws. Too quick to try and make a law and sweep it under the carpet. You know, educate people, help people, provide resources. You know, make it not so taboo. You know, we're in an LDS area, so let's just go there. It would be amazing what would happen if one of the elders said, you know what, I've fought with pornography, I've struggled with it, but here's what I've done. How many people would that affect?
Oh, it would be amazing.
And you know, go outside the LDS church. Imagine a pastor sitting up at a pulpit one Sunday going, you know what, I've struggled with this. This has been something I've fought my whole life. And I want to be open with you guys and tell you, so you can help hold me accountable. Imagine the effect that will have on people. They'll either go, oh my gosh, I'm leaving this church, or they'll go, you know what, if he can be open, why can't I?
Isn't that amazing? I mean, that's the whole reason for this show, is to be open and people telling their stories and to be raw about things and to fess up to, you know, what someone has done or adversities they've had and how they've gotten out of it. But you're right. Anytime someone that's struggling with something in a high visibility type of position or whatever, if they would come out and say something,
absolutely,
then it would be, I think it would reform a lot of things. I agree with you. It's like the laws are kind of an interesting thing, but the more education that there is the more little things like this and the more people talk about it, the better off we're going to be about it, because it does affect. We don't know how it affects family. We don't know who's watching that might be affected and might go, wow, I need to reach out. You know, need to reach out to people and find out.
Instead, really, what the laws are doing is you just want to sweep them away, lock them away. You know, alcoholism, drug addict, same way. Mm-hmm. I know someone that's struggling with drug addiction right now, and the laws, the justice system, instead of ordering him to counseling and getting help, they're ordering him to a drug test a couple times a week, and they've thrown him in jail several times. That's not helping.
Well, minimum mandatory laws with those types of things have killed a lot of, you know, have been no problem.
But I'm just saying, you know, the laws are just sweeping things under, you know. Like with me, it was an undercover agent, undercover detective that goes through Craigslist and sends out messages trying to catch people. Mm-hmm. Okay, don't blame them. I understand why they're doing it, because sex trafficking is a real thing. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There are sexual predators out there. However, you gotta take it by the kicks. You can't do the broad statement. Mm-hmm. You can't do the wet blanket over everything. Mm-hmm.
I understand.
Definitely. You know, depression's the same way. Just because someone's depressed doesn't mean that their depression is the same as someone else. Mm-hmm. You need to deal with that person.
Have you since helped any, you know, have you noticed it in your own sphere of influence? Have you noticed anybody with that and they've come to you? And
I've talked to several people, yes. I've had several people that have sought me out.
Really? Good.
Once they kind of find out a little bit.
Right.
Asked me for help.
Right.
I've got one guy that I talk to quite frequently, that his marriage was actually almost over because of it. He kept having an affair and, you know, was deep into pornography, and I've been able to help give him a little bit of guidance and advice. Right. And I'm by no means a professional counselor. I can only talk to someone from life experience.
Right, right. But I think sometimes, and that again, that's the focus of the show, is regular people helping regular people go through. We all know we're not trained, but we certainly have a lot of life experience and are able to help somebody along the way. And I think that's the best way to help people, is to inform them about what the issues are, and then allow them to network. And that's kind of what I'm hoping will happen today, is that network can be put together to help people. I mean, I've had friends and relatives and things like that have been affected by porn, and marriages that have just been, or marriages that are still together, and there is a problem, but it really isn't a marriage anymore. It's become just this a coexistence that
becomes a shell.
Exactly.
Or an image.
What is your take on what do we tell our young people? When do we start kind of talking about the whole, in your opinion, if we were to have a crystal ball and plenty of money and plenty of time and plenty of energy, where would we start with this?
I really think it's around the age of puberty, and I don't think it's up to the schools. I think it's up to the parents.
I think a lot of people would agree with that.
I think we've got to quit relying on schools and the state to decide when to talk to our kids. It's up to the parents. You've got to be responsible if you're going to have kids, and you've got to teach them things. I was always very open with my girls, even though, and I'm not proud of this, I hid from mine. I was still always very open and talked to my girls about stuff.
Right.
And made sure that they understood life and understood the attractions and the disadvantages of premarital sex or early sex. And you know what? I'm not going to say my girls are perfect. They aren't. But I'm awfully proud of them.
Mm-hmm.
They've done amazing things.
Well, I'm sure they're pretty proud of you too. I would imagine your whole family is. I mean, I'm sure there's some glitches.
A lot of my family doesn't want anything to do with me.
That's too bad.
They've looked at the title and they can't get past that.
Even though some of them have probably the same
Exactly.
issues, but of course we don't want to throw down our wall and
And you know what? It took some time with my girls, but yeah, I've actually got a better relationship with them now than I did prior.
Well, and you still have a ring on your finger.
I actually met a new lady, and she's been very supportive, and
That's awesome.
I was remarried. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think, that support system is really rather important.
It is.
What would you say? What do you say to people when what's the conversation start out with if somebody reaches out to you, or if you see those signs in somebody else? How do you approach that?
Do
you go into the Vince Lombardi mode? Hey, we gotta,
No, actually, I become pretty tender-hearted because for me, it's like, okay, what got you to this point? What hurt or what angst or anger got you here? It's that underlying, what is it? Let me help you find out. People like to hide. People like to hide their emotions.
Well, especially men. Especially we men.
Men, absolutely.
We men.
God forbid you cry, or God forbid you show that you actually care and that you're hurt by something.
Right.
I think I try to explain to people, and I try to take that approach of, you know what, I may not have been in your shoes, but you don't know mine either. Let's talk, and I bet together we can help each other.
Well, and how similar we all are.
That too.
That's been a very focal point of this, when I do these shows, how similar we all are, but we all think things are independent of everybody else. But when you really look at it, when you kind of dig down deep, like today, what are we really talking about? We're talking about depression and darkness and
Which leads to
insecurities.
suicide.
Insecurities. The biggest thing facing the human race is insecurity.
Absolutely.
It's the biggest thing, but we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. So if we don't talk about it, then it's okay. But
or you're selective.
Right.
And you want to bash on a group because you don't believe that what they're doing or their style is right. And I don't care if it's from religious to sexual orientation to the house down by the river or the van down by the river. As a community, we quit caring about people and we care about what makes me feel good and what status do I have.
Mm-hmm.
When reality is, I don't care if you're the president of the LDS church. There's things you struggle with.
Oh, there's no doubt.
I don't care if you're the governor. You're going to struggle with stuff. And honestly, the person that might be the absolute happiest is the one in the van down by the river, because everything else got stripped away from them, and they found who they are, and they like who they are. And that was me.
Yeah.
Everything got stripped away.
Yeah.
And I finally found out who I was. And I like who I am.
Well, it's very apparent. You're the care, the emotion you have, the passion you have. I'm very grateful that you came on. I mean, really grateful.
Well, I appreciate it. And, I want the message out there. I would love to speak. I just worry about repercussions.
Sure.
That people are judgmental, and I know
we can have you speak on here quite a bit. So don't go too far. If there's some issues that come up in the future, or something becomes real, would love to have you. I mean, I'd really love to have you on again, because like we said off the air, you're gonna forget. There might be some things that you wanted to say that you could have said. Closing. It's not a closing statement. It's just I always give everybody the chance to roll that passion out. Is there something you haven't said or you want to say again that would be really important for somebody to hear out there?
Love people. And if you can't love people, ask yourself why. Because it's probably something inside of you that you aren't liking. And if you love people, you'll give people a chance and you'll talk to them and you'll help each other. And, that's across the board. If you make yourself vulnerable and someone's depressed, they're going to feel comfortable and open up to you.
Wow. We've heard that word vulnerable before. We've heard that word love before. And I'm fairly large in stature. He's then again large in stature as well. So this goes out to all those tough guys out there that think that they're bulletproof or they can't let down their shield or put their armor down. Vulnerability is the thing that really heals things if you're able to talk about them and things like that. And we've talked about love. There's no, unconditional love is about the best thing that's happened. This has been a difficult topic, and I'm sure, and I just so admire, I said, I think I said on my little thing, I'm honored to have you, and really, it takes a lot of guts to come on, but as you've said, you love people, you're okay to be vulnerable, and that's exactly what it's all about. So,
and if anyone wants to talk, I'm willing.
I can definitely, just private message me or text me, and I will for sure make sure that gets to our guest. Our guest has been wonderful to have on, and I know it's kind of a solemn kind of attitude here, but again, I appreciate everybody for watching. Appreciate guests being here. We're going to have them on again. Remember to go to BEAU'D.broken.com, or you can go to the YouTube channel to see everything. Don't forget tomorrow, Yoda Man, get those superhero outfits on and wear them underneath your shirt or on top of your shirt or whatever. I just wanted to say a couple really specific thank yous, and that's Stephanie Lito. She's out there. She's been sick. She was one of our guests on one of the original shows. She's been sick. She's shopping for superhero shirts, and she's watched all the shows, and she gets it out there quite a bit. I also want to recognize Missy Lee, Missy and Toby, and John Gossett. Missy sends out, re-shares all those kinds of things. There's a lot of you. Suzanne Bailey sends everything out. You don't have to do it all the time, but I appreciate it. The more we share, the more we like, the more, a little more noticeability that the show gets or whatever we're doing here. And remember, all of you guys are a part of this effort. So appreciate everybody watching. Remember, everything, it's all about the Ben, and we'll see you tomorrow on BEAU'D Friday. Thank you.
Absolutely.